All right, so I know this is a tough one dealing with the whole, you want to do a good job and you want to take care of the company and you want to be, that's why this whole thing started, right? You want to give a lot of notice and be like, how are we going to work through this because I'm trying to ease my way out. And we've all been there, right? And it's something we all, I think IT really suffers with. It's so easy to try to take on the burdens. Everybody's burdens become your burdens, right? Well, they didn't think these things through, but I have to. But that's not your job, right? And this is one of the most important things is you have to remember this is a career. This is your career. This is your job. You were hired to do a specific thing. The expectations of you being able to do certain things, the power to do certain things, are left only with you, right? You're not given the power to fire your boss. You're not given the power to enact policy and say, oh, there has to be a handover environment. There has to be someone else who's trained to do the job. There has to be. You don't have that power, right? You have the power to do your job in IT, and you have people over you, and they have jobs to do, and they've known this from day one, right? You don't hire someone and not know how to handle these things, right? That's not reasonable. It's not plausible, right? You can't make the argument that they didn't know that these were risks and things that they had to take care of. Of course they knew, right? You can't reduce them to 4-year-olds. These are real people who are paying the bills, who have responsibilities, and for presumably 8 years, right? They've declined to take on those responsibilities for whatever reason. They're lazy, they're incompetent, they thought they could get away with it, and clearly they have, right? Come up with whatever reason it takes. For some reason, they decided to not do due diligence, to not get trained on the job that they oversee, to not be willing to have a handover person. That's okay, right? It's their job. Right? Whoever owns the company, whoever these people are, right? They've all collectively decided that that behavior is okay. No one's being punished for that. That's fine. That's not your problem, right? It doesn't matter if that's okay for them. It doesn't matter if it's a disaster for them. That's not your problem. You did not, and do not have the responsibility or the capability to fix that, right? It's not your company. It's not your call. Now that that situation has arisen, now that they know you're leaving, they have two choices. One is do nothing and just let disaster strike. The other is hire someone, bring on an MSP, and fix it. Again, their choice. You can lay out those choices for them, but it is their choice. There's nothing, literally nothing, that you can do about it, and that's fine because it's not your responsibility, it's not your problem, it's not your job, right? And they can't change your job description to make it your job, right? We all say, oh, your job description is whatever people tell you to do. It's not exactly true, right? That is generally true. There's this kind of like, well, I worked on Windows and they told me to work on Linux. That's fine. They can expect you to now work on Linux instead of Windows, but they can't expect you to know anything about it. They can't expect you to be good at it. They can't expect you to get it right. They can't be upset when you aren't able to move forward in the new role, right? They can tell you not to do the old one. They can tell you you're no longer needed, right? Oh, we've decided to move from Windows to Linux. You don't know Linux. You're not able to learn Linux. Well, you're done. Right? That's what it means when you give someone a new job role, right? There's things that are reasonable to give people as new job roles: taking out the trash, cleaning up after yourself, attending meetings, whatever, things that you're able to do that it's unreasonable for you to not be able to do. Oh, I can't take out the trash. I don't know how garbage bags work. Right? You can't make that argument, right? That's stupid. But telling you to suddenly be a teacher, be able to document, be able to do something that no other human on earth can do, but you're expected to do it. And guess what? They're allowed to ask you to do that. Hey, look, I don't know if you're Superman, but could you try this out and see if you're able to do something that no one else can do, right? Train lay people to do a job that even IT people often can't do very well. Sure, they can ask, and you go, no, or, well, I'll try, but there's no, right? That's how that works, and that's how that has to work. And they have choices. They can say, oh, well, I guess that was stupid of us to have thought maybe you could break all the rules of physics and do this thing. Or they can say, well, that's what we need, and if you can't do it, sorry, but you're done. They're allowed to fire you, right? Your role is no longer needed. So that's important. You have to understand you can try that thing, and you will fail, and then they'll blame you. Or you can be honest, and they can decide whether they actually want you to stay on at all, or they want you to attempt this, or they just want to be done with the situation. But they then have to fire you, right? These things are very black and white, right? There isn't a lot of this implied gray area of, well, maybe they can make me stay, maybe they can force me to do this, maybe they can reduce my pay and I don't have to agree. None of that's true. That's all BS, right? This stuff is black and white. You agreed to a certain job at a certain pay rate. If they change what your job is, guess what? They violated the contract. Yes, they're allowed to change your job, but you're allowed to renegotiate the contract. This is a two-way street. Nobody has more power than the other person. And you can't act that way, because when you do, you're giving them that power and you're setting everyone up for failure, right? If they change your pay rate, you get to change your job description. If they change your job description, you get to change your pay rate. Everyone has to agree or you're done, right? And the person who initiates the change, if they don't agree to the terms of the other person, they're the one who does the firing or the quitting, right? You suddenly say, you know what, I don't like the terms of this job anymore. I'm only going to work half as many hours, but you have to pay me just as much. They say, no. Guess what? You just quit, right? That's called quitting. Everyone has a number, right? We all quit jobs from time to time, and every job has a number or a deal where they could come back to us and be like, wait, what if we reduced you to 1 hour a week and paid you $1 million a year, right? At some point, everybody says yes. Every quitting is a negotiation that went bad. It's just that normally when we quit, we're like, you know what, there's no way you're going to give me enough to even bother with the conversation, so let's not kid ourselves and let's just move on. But they could, right? That's what quitting is. And being fired, every employee could make some deal, unless you're stealing or stabbing people at work or something, but everybody could come up with some deal. Wait, I will work twice as many hours for half the pay. Well, maybe we'll keep you, right? There's always some deal that they would keep you, but it's an assumed failed negotiation is when you get fired or laid off, right? That's how hiring and firing works. And so if they're coming up with these demands and you aren't willing to meet them, they fired you, right? Now, it sounds awful. Oh no, I got fired. Smart employees want to be fired. You don't want to quit. Why'd you leave this job? Well, they had a whole bunch of, they couldn't afford me anymore, and they wanted me to do things that wasn't in my job description. They wanted me to be a completely different worker, and I didn't want to work that job. So, they decided to let me go, and that's perfectly respectable, and nobody has a problem with that. But you turn around, is it better to say, well, I got kind of tired of the job and I want to put up their BS, so I quit, right? Which is better. I got fired because everything changed. And technically it's not firing, it's kind of a layoff, right? They kind of have to structure it that way. Those things are great, though, when you go to unemployment. Well, they let me go because they weren't willing to be flexible. They weren't willing to honor the agreement that we had. Now, all that said, remember, the first thing is you got to stop making excuses. Because first of all, these excuses are not plausible. They're totally BS, right? And I know emotionally, we're all like, I feel bad. Oh man, maybe it's my fault. Because they all want us to feel it's our fault, right? They know how to play this game. That's why they're managers, right? We got to stop doing this as a field. IT people are so easy to manipulate, right? We will feel bad. We will take on guilt. It's like being a kid in a Catholic household, right? You gotta walk away. Your parents, your employers, they are trained to use guilt as a tool, and they will do it every time, right? I don't care how much you think they're your friends, they are going to use these tactics to make you give them free work or not quit or whatever. And it's happening, right? We're all reading this thread and seeing how they're doing this to you, right? These are not your friends. These are the polar opposite of friends. This is what not a friend looks like, right? This is what not a good employer like. There's like, oh, I work with my friends. That's what this looks like, this thing over here. And then there's, well, I work for a good employer that we're not friends. That's like over here. But where we're at here, not only are these not friends, this is not even a good employer. This isn't an employer who's good for you, nor an employer who's clearly good for themselves. Like, this is just not good, right? We're bordering on not good people. We're bordering on not very smart. Like, there's just a lot of not good here. But the two things that we know from this description, unless you're making up this description of what's happened, and all the descriptions over the years past, the things we know is these are not your friends, and these are not good employers, right? Period. There is no gray area that I can understand here, right? The things that are happening cannot happen if they cared about you as a person, because they're being rotten, absolutely rotten, right? If these were people in your house, you should kick them out. You don't want to have this conversation. You want to treat me like this? Get out of my house, right? And two, these aren't good employers, right? This is not an employer that you want to go around and be like, oh, I worked for them. They're such smart people. No, they're not. These are not respectable people. These are people you should be embarrassed to be doing business with. And yeah, it happens. We all get stuck in bad jobs. Walk away. It is time to say, this is not a healthy situation. These are not healthy people to have in your life. This is not a healthy job to have as part of your... Move on. Right? We've been saying this for a long time, and I know you're trying. I'm not saying you don't know that, but you have to internalize more than, I have this dream of my own company, and I really want to do these things, and I'm excited about that, and that's why I'm leaving. You need to make it, I'm leaving because this job sucks, and these people aren't good for me. Right? Because that's the real situation. These people are not doing you any favors, just across the board. The way they're treating you, right? I don't know what great things they may have done in the past. Look at them through the eye of they weren't doing the things that they needed to do. They haven't been running the IT department in a professional way. They haven't been looking at you as a professional. Maybe you got good money, maybe you got good benefits, and that's fine, right? The job was worth it to you for whatever reason up until now. That doesn't make them good people. It just means that the situation was good for you or good enough. Whatever. That happens. Great. Now it's not good enough anymore. Now it's time to move on. And so the last thing I want to talk about is no amount of going down this path is going to end well. We said this in the thread, and you recognized it, but this is really important to say that the more you give them any hope, the more that you give them an inch here, they are going to use it against you because they're already doing it. Right? There's no question. That's what they're trying to do, and we can see it happening, and it's going to keep happening, and you are clearly, to some degree, susceptible to this, so you got to really hedge yourself. You are heading for a much bigger disaster. Right now, you can walk out and be like, look, okay, clearly I said this is what I was willing to do. You said you were not willing to do it. I'll give you 2 weeks, right? And we're done. We're out of here. So no harm, no foul, right? All of the requests that they're making, all of the things they want you to do, those things are about additional, past the point of your job. Oh, we're going to give you a new job. Now that you're quitting, we're going to give you a new job. Now that you gave us a term on when you're going to quit, we're going to make sure that term never happens. And so you can stay forever and do this new job. And so there's a bunch of things you have to recognize here. One, you can't do the job you're doing and do this other job. Can't happen, right? I don't care how little hours you have to work. This isn't going to happen, right? They just doubled the size of your job or more. The job they want you to do is impossible. You can't explain IT to non-IT people. You can't. It doesn't matter. Just say it and don't budge an inch on that. Can't be done. Well, we'll get someone else. Can't be done. Well, you're going to... Can't be done. Just keep repeating it. Cannot do it. You can ask me to do it. You can ask someone else to do it. You can ask anybody. Cannot be done. No one who's being honest with you will even have this conversation. Right? The only person who's willing to discuss this with you is a person who's looking to get free work for doing nothing, because every idiot, including the people who are asking you, know that what they're asking for is impossible. Don't give them well, they're so stupid. They are such children. They are so mentally handicapped that they don't understand that professions can't just be explained on paper. Don't give them that excuse. And that's what every IT person is trained to do, right? And it's a superiority thing. We kind of have this, IT people are brilliant. And okay, we kind of are. I'll give us that, right? What makes us gravitate towards IT is we're generally smarter. And I mean that in a generally way, right? To be good at IT, you have to be generally good at a lot of things. You can't be just, well, I really understand this one thing and not anything. No, you're useless to IT, right? But you can be really, really good at one little thing and good to a lot of other fields that use that one thing and can isolate you. But in IT, if you're not generally smart, you are generally useless, right? So, okay. But because of that, and because we're always struggling with what makes us feel good about ourselves, and this is just humans in general, there is a heavy trend to always excuse other people's behavior as idiocy. They're not in IT. They're not me. So I just have to expect that they're stupid. Right? And not like kind of stupid. Not like, oh, they don't understand the things I understand. You know what? Everybody has things they understand and other people don't understand. Right? No. We have a tendency to be like, wow, these people are ridiculously stupid. Right? We do it all the time. We all do it. And once in a while, there are people out there who are really stupid. but almost never is that the case, especially with people who own companies and are your boss. Why do you work for people if you think they're that stupid, right? They're not that stupid. But you know what? They know that letting you think they're that stupid is a great way to manipulate you. That's how smart they are. That's how far they are from stupid, right? And it's this thing. All humans do it, right? We all want to think everyone else is more stupid than us, and it's not really true, right? I mean, for half of people, yes, half of people are not as smart as them, but right, in the big general numbers, most people are relatively about the same intelligence, right? The variances in functional society are not that high. If you think someone is that stupid, remember, they couldn't feed themselves. If they don't understand things like basic risk, they may not be able to put numbers on it, right? If they understand how to put on a seatbelt, they know where to put on a seatbelt. If they know how to put on a seatbelt, they know that having you walk out the door with no passwords is a disaster, right? Those are the same kinds of risk. That's so simple. That's something, I can go grab my children and have them come in here and explain this to them, right? My 7-year-old will have no problem saying, "Oh yeah, the only person who knows how to do anything leaves. No one will know how to do anything," right? Oh, it took 25 years to learn how to do these things? You can't teach that in 6 months, or everyone would do it and that would be their career, right? You don't need to have an adult to explain these kinds of stupidities. And so don't give them this freebie, they're so stupid, I have to treat them like children. And it's my responsibility as a smart person to do all this for them because they're too stupid to do it for themselves. And yeah, they make more money than me, and they can fire me at any time, and they treat me like crap, and they've known this for 8 years and didn't bring it out until the last second. And clearly they're trying to manipulate me, but I'll ignore all that because they're stupid. Never do that. Always treat people like they're as smart or smarter than you. If that's your mistake and they end up being actually stupid, it's not your fault, right? Giving someone the benefit of the doubt is never your fault. Convincing yourself that they're stupid and need to be not treated like functional humans, anything that goes wrong is a little bit your fault, right? Don't do it. Always give them the rope. Let them hang themselves. Never be the person who decides to hang them. Anything you do going down this path, right? The more you do, the more they will blame you. Well, he spent 6 months charging us for documentation, and we weren't able to use it. He wrote it like we were idiots, or he wrote it like in jargon. How could we possibly know what a start button is? I don't even know where this mouse. I don't have a mouse. There's no mouse running around on my desk. That's the kind of stuff that they're going to tell the people they give your reference to, right? They're going to use this to set you up because that's what they're doing. There's no purpose for this except to set you up, right? Why else would they be spending all this money to pay you to do something they know, don't say they don't know, because they know is useless, right? We already know it's useless. You've given this to your boss. We've been down the, right? It's either too technical and she doesn't understand non-technical things, right? You've already established that she's illiterate. That's important, right? And illiterate doesn't mean she's stupid. It means she's lazy, right? My 7-year-old understands what a mouse is. She knows what the start button is. So that's not, this doesn't require certain intelligence. It requires not being so lazy as to not know how to do just normal things. I don't know what a pencil is. You know what? You have to be lazy to not know what a pencil is. Every bit of this is going to be spending money on you and being unhappy with the result. There's no possibility of there being a happy result at the end. None. Right? You already have documented stuff other than turning over the passwords. You've already documented stuff enough for another IT department to take over. Right? Maybe it's not great documentation, but you know what? They didn't pay you for documentation. Wasn't part of your charter. No one was checking up on it. For 8 years, it's been good enough. Everything that's been good enough for 8 years is good enough now. Period. Right? You walk away right now, today, right? Oh, you didn't hire someone? Okay, well, I'll accept your immediate termination of me. Thanks. Right? Walk out the door. And they say, no, what you've done isn't good enough. You say, wait. You show me where I've changed since the last review where you told me it wasn't adequate. And unless you can show me that, it is adequate, and I have proof. And if you say it's not, I will see you in court, right? Because now what they're going to do is try to lie to make it seem like you've not been doing your job for 8 years, because that's the claim they're making. For 8 years, you've not been doing your job. You have to show that if that's true, or if there's even a hint of that, that means that there are people above you, one or more, for sure, who have not been doing their job for 8 years. So ask that question. Don't back down from asking these kinds of questions. If what you think I've been doing for 8 years is not adequate, why is my boss still my boss? Why have I not been told for 8 years that what I was doing wasn't adequate? And for 8 years, why have they been allowed to not tell me and me not get better and them not do anything about it? What's their boss been doing? And at some point, you have to ask what their boss has been doing. Now, at some point, it may take a year for your boss's boss to figure out that nothing, like, oh, you're not doing your job, right? Your boss should know in about a week that you're not doing your job. Their boss might know in a month or 6 months, maybe a year, that they're not doing their job with you. Their boss might take even longer, 2 years, 3 years, before they figure out that the person under them isn't taking care of the person under them, isn't taking care of you. But at some point, after 8 years, at a company that's not super huge, you have to simply say, the owners have not been doing their job. And there's no really such thing as the owners not doing their job. Once it gets to the owner, it is acceptance of the job that is being done. Right? Once the owner is aware and does not change it, that is not people not doing their job. That is how you define what is acceptable as that job. Right? So once the owners are at that point, all bets are off. Because otherwise, what's the point of acceptance? Right? There has to be acceptance, and and it's just how it is. So at this point, you cannot simply continue. You cannot pretend that the things they're doing are okay. You cannot pretend that they are your friends or a good employer. You cannot do any of the things that they are asking you to do. You cannot pretend you're doing them. You cannot attempt to do them. All of those things will end badly. And this is all incredibly unfortunate, but it is unfortunate because these are not good people who are not treating you well. And that's the bottom line. Bad people treating you badly, trying to figure out how to manipulate you to take advantage of the situation, and if you don't stand steady, it will work. And it has probably worked for them repeatedly throughout their lives. They will do it to other people. It is how many employers work. It is normal. It is terrible. But it is why we as IT have to talk to each other and follow the rules. The 2-week rule. The we don't train lay people rule. The, we don't take responsibility for our boss's responsibilities rule. The we don't fall to AJ syndrome and feel that the company, I owe the company more than the company wants rule. Like, there's all these things. You gotta stick to these things. And we have them because as a field, we are susceptible. We are isolated. We tend to be a social group that is easy to manipulate into guilt. We lack the oversight of other people in our peer groups, and HR departments have a tendency to see us as a threat and like to lash out and try to hurt us. It is way too common that companies want to harm the IT person. Maybe not physically, but they really want to harm us, right? That's an active thing. HR departments actively try to sabotage IT people, often out of envy. And you just have to accept that these things are true. We have to work in certain ways to make these things work for us in the field. But remember, if you were anyone else, if you weren't the IT person, how would they function? What if you were the chauffeur? What if you were the HR lady? What if you were it could be the HR guy, right? It's just always called the HR lady. What if you were finance? What if you were payroll? What if you were accounts receivable? What if you were working in a manufacturing plant? None of those people, could they ever get away with doing what they just did to you? None of those people, because they respect them, and those people respect themselves. But they gambled that they could treat you differently and worse than any other person in the organization, and that you wouldn't stand up to them. And that's what's happening, and that's what they're banking on. And they're going to take advantage of that as far as they can, because why not? It's to their advantage to do so.